Well, if you're going to have an auction of glamorous cars of many, many eras, then what better place than Cliveden House? We're just in front of it in what is probably the UK's most expensive car park just at this moment. And I'm talking to Peter Haynes, the marketing director from RM Sotheby's, whose auction it is. This really is quite a spectacular setup.
It is, yes. I mean, this is the second time we've been to Cliveden House. So we came here for the first time last summer, and we're always looking for kind of a destination venue for the auctions, and it's beautiful here. The house, there's so much history here. So if people coming to the auction, not only do they get to look at all the cars and attend the auction, but they can look around the grounds of the house, and it's wonderful.
I referred to the fact that there's such a spread of cars. You've got almost from the very infancy of motoring. I think your earliest car is 1905, up to current supercars. It's unusual to get this diversity in any one auction.
It is, and actually I would say, I mean, RM Sotheby's has a reputation, I would say, probably for being real market specialists in post-war cars. So it's really nice for us, I think, in particular, that we've got so much pre-war stuff here, and there's some of it's no reserve as well. Quite a lot of it is no reserve, which is great for the buyers. But we always look for variety, and this auction has got a lot of variety in it.
I'm intrigued also by the fact that you now have, if you like, even more select auctions where you put specific cars up for sealed bids, I think. Certainly you just had a very, very rare ex-works Ferrari race car from the 50s, late 50s.
Yep. We're known as being an auction house, obviously. But we do a lot of private sales, private treaty, and we have what we call sealed platform. And with the sealed platform, that's absolutely perfect for people that would rather not be selling their car in the very public domain of a live auction. And we try and be very choosy about what comes into sealed. So quite often they're very storied cars with amazing history and provenance. Quite often they are amongst the most valuable cars that we sell. So that's a great example. And we've sold contemporary Formula One cars, sort of ex-Schumacher, Ferraris, and everything, McLaren F1s, and everything in between.
It's quite an extraordinary mixture. I mean, I notice even just looking up here, where else are you going to find a Le Mans car, an LMP1? That's almost a current car.
It is, and in fact we ran that car at Silverstone only about 2 weeks ago. I mean, it is a fully up and running, on the button machine, and it's extraordinarily fast. I mean, the thing is with that, actually, comparatively good value. I'm not going to use the word cheap, but it was a few years ago absolutely cutting edge endurance racing machine, and you can buy a car like that for a few £100,000, but comfortably under £1 million, and which is a lot of money. But there's a lot of places you can race a car like that, and it's so for somebody that wants something seriously quick that they can go and compete in sort of historic endurance racing events with, absolutely perfect.
Spot on. And at the same time, and my particular interest always is the Ferraris. You've got some wonderful Ferraris here.
Yeah, and we are something of a Ferrari expert. We have a very close cooperation with Ferrari. We've done a number of sales at Maranello. The last time we did an auction at Maranello was to celebrate Ferrari's 70th anniversary. And most of the Ferraris we offer have been certified by Ferrari as well. So we always bring in a really good selection of Ferraris to most of our sales. Yeah.
There's a particular reason for wanting to stand in front of this car. It is the oldest car here, 1905 Clement-Talbot Tourer. It's a full four-seat Tourer, as I say, 1905. The estimate on this, £80,000 to £140,000. But the other reason for wanting to step in front of this, I mean, it's a beautifully restored car. It's what they call a brass age car. Self-evident, there's lots of brass on it because they did then of that period. But it's remarkably sophisticated. Much of the things that one would see on a much more modern car are here in place on this car. The development was so rapid, the technical development. Bear in mind, 1905, the motor car had only been around for a little over a decade at that time. And yet you've got now a full 4-seat Tourer. All right, it's still sitting on spoked wheels of a type that were really a carriage, but it's a sophisticated engine, gearbox, exhaust. All of the features of a much more modern car can be found in this car. Well, we've been talking about French brands. This is Delage, one of the great French marques. But particular interest here is the fact that this is bodied by Wayman. Now, Wayman was a coach builder and of a particular era when one bought a car like the Delage, or to my left, the Lagonda, which was a Tickford-bodied car. One bought the basic car, so the running gear of the car, the engine, gearbox, the wheels, the chassis, all of those things were what you bought. And then you went to your favourite coach builder, in this case either with a Delage Wayman or with the Lagonda Tickford. And you went to Hooper's or any of the other many coach builders, and they were coach builders. They'd been around from the era when coaches were being built, pre-motor cars, and they'd become builders of car bodies. So they would take your basic chassis and they would build these wonderful bodies onto it with these fabulous headlights and complete leather interiors. They would do everything, and you would then go to their showroom when they'd finished for your completed car. In this case, these are both actually very affordable. The Delage is offered without reserve at 35 to 45,000. So these are late 20s and late 30s cars. Wonderful, shining examples. No longer brass age, you notice, but gorgeous in their chrome. You can almost tell the early history of Bentley just in the two cars just in front of me. Lot number 123, which is the 1926. This is the red label Wayman Saloon. So this is the archetypal early Bentley saloon road car. Sporting, but not overtly so. But then just opposite, the 1929 6.5 litre Tourer. Now this is much more like the race cars, which were incredibly successful, winning Le Mans 3 years in a row. They were just so powerful, the drivers just so gung-ho, and the big lump on the front, the blower, which made the difference to everything. They were so powerful, so fast, so sturdy. And some people, Enzo Ferrari notably, thought that they were a bit like a lorry. Well, they were. They were so solid, they were so heavy, they were so fast. But if they had lorry drivers parading them around the Mulsanne circuit, they certainly did so with great success. At the other end of the spectrum, both in terms of cost and in terms of supercar status, if you like, this wonderful collection of Ferraris that we're standing in front of right at the moment. And I particularly picked on this car. This is the 64 250 GT L for Lusso. The early 60s saw great success with the 250 GT. Not GTO, that comes later, the GT. The short wheelbase car, very successful in the hands of both English drivers, Italian drivers, very successful at all kinds of races. This is, if you like, the sporting gentleman's luxury version of that same car. Slightly extended body shape, slightly detuned engine, but still a very powerful motor car, and one of the finest of all Ferrari's, most collectible. This is, well, a shade under $1 million to 1.2 million. Beside that, in a rather different colourway, an unusual colourway, a 365 GTC, again, one of the great classic Ferrari Tourers. Not so much race car derived, but certainly a very, very different car, very sophisticated two-seater, one of the great Grand Tourers. So that's a 69 Ferrari 365 GTC. And then, well, another of the great Ferraris. This one, again, a road car, but very, very much a race car derived car. This is a 73 C65 GTB4, the Daytona Berlinetta. Now there's a clue there in the Daytona. This car so called because it won Daytona, a very, very powerful front-engined Ferrari coupe. If I can add a little story to this, this is one that in his early days Derek Bell raced at Le Mans. Not in the top class, in one of the sporting car classes. And he says in his autobiography, he got slightly carried away because he had one of these as a road car, courtesy of Ferrari at the time. And on the way back to the hotel post-race, his wife said to him, "Derek, I think maybe you're going a little bit too fast." And he was driving at 170 because he'd gone back into race car mode as he was driving it. So he did indeed slow down a little bit, because that's perhaps a bit exceptional for the roads even in France in the early 70s. But again, a beautiful, beautiful car. The Pininfarina badge. I mean, it says everything. So many of these cars designed, and quite a lot of them built by Pininfarina. And then a personal favourite of mine, much, much later. This is the 1996 Ferrari 355 GTS. Rear-engined, a much smaller car, a sort of post-Dino, if you like, entry-level V8. Beautiful car to drive, and I can tell you that because I have driven one on track and really enjoyed the experience. Lovely car to drive, a real driver's car. But perhaps enough of Ferraris. I'm going to move on to one of its rivals, because again, this is one of my favourite cars. I do love the 355. This is a different era, and I think one of the best sounding sporting cars of all time is a 1963 Maserati 3500 GTI. This is the Spider. I personally prefer the coupe, but I'm not going to be fussy. This is 400 to 450,000 expected for this, and it's a quite wonderful car. And this, I'm not quite sure whether it's very, very dark green, whether it is actually black. I'll let you decide on that when you see the film. But a gorgeous motor car, and I think one of the best sounding sporting cars of all time. And yes, please, Santa Claus, in my stocking this coming year. That'd be wonderful. Thank you very much. What's your favourite car here today? Go on. What's the one that you would have if you were buying?
Which is the car I would have? I often get asked this question, and then I struggle to come up with an answer, because you've got to make a decision. Let me just have a quick glance around. Well, I think, do you know, there's a black Maserati Spider over there, 3500 GT Spider.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the most beautiful cars of its era, and because it's got a Maserati badge on it and not a Ferrari badge, comparatively speaking, they look like very good value for money, because it's a spectacular 60s, motor car to go and drive the French Riviera or somewhere like that. And Maseratis these days represent good value for money.
It's also one of my favourite cars as well. I also think it's one of the best sounding cars of all times.
Yeah.
I used to live in a village in Hampshire which had a hairpin bend down into the valley, and somebody not very far away owned one of those. And hearing it go down through the gearbox on the hairpins on the way down, it was like an Alpine Dream soundtrack. Wonderful motor car.
Yeah, well, sound is... these cars, people collect old cars, classic cars, because they tap into your senses in a way that a modern car just can't. And the sound of a car, as well as the way it looks, is as important as anything else. And yeah, I mean, and some sound better than others, that's for sure.
Well, we've heard much in the news recently about Lotus. Well, Lotus is now owned by Geely, the Chinese car manufacturer, and they've been very benevolent with it, I think, so far. It has a very illustrious history. There have been concerns about whether it will be moved. Hopefully that isn't the case, because one of the things that Britain has done very, very well in the past are low-volume sports cars. So we're going to start with the 61 Lotus Elite Series 2, one of Colin Chapman's finest, one of the most perfect of its time fiberglass cars, with the backbone structure which the great designer Colin Chapman created. Just add lightness, that was his mantra, and he certainly did so. I mean, these were enormously successful, following on from the 6s, the 7s, all of them which were essentially single-seat racers developed into a two-seat sports car. And this was a step up, the Elite, more sophisticated, precursor to the Elan, which followed, and all of the other which followed after that, which became more and more sophisticated, more and more expensive. This is a very, very fine example, with not a serious price tag on it, 70 to 100,000. No reserve on that, so it could be bought. It's beautifully restored. But talking about English manufacturers, low-volume manufacturers, one that is no longer with us, Jensen. This is the Interceptor 2. This followed the whole notion of take an English construction GT car, very, very good design, and put a big American V8 and an auto box into it. And that was what Jensen had done for many, many years. From their start, sadly, they are no longer with us, but this is a good example of 71 Interceptor 2, 40 to 60,000. You see, they're not desperately fashionable at the moment, so that's a very, very affordable motor car in this marketplace.
A few pictures anyway.
Another low-volume manufacturer, and one that it appears, if rumours are to be believed, is perhaps going to come back. This is AC. This is, in fact, a 57 ACS Seeker Bristol. There's a complicated story there, but I think it's one of the best-looking GTs of its era. Late 50s, beautiful-looking motor car. This one, I think, has been rallied because it's caged and got a fire system and so on within it. The Bristol was, even when these were being put in here, the Bristol was a rather aged engine. It wasn't terribly sophisticated, but these were pretty fast for their day, and a very, very good looking coupe. This, again, it's quite affordable, 90 to 130,000. I think it'll fetch that sort of money. It's clearly been well used but well restored, and is very much well looked after. But one of many low-volume English sports cars of the 50s and 60s, and say AC, long gone, AC that gave us the Cobra Coupe, won Le Mans with that. Once they bumped into Carroll Shelby and he started looking at these cars, taking them apart, putting the big V8s into them, the big American muscle, then they became hugely successful. There isn't a Cobra here today. They are very, very rare now, a good, genuine Cobra. But this is a gorgeous looking motor car with a wonderful ancestry. An extraordinary thing is at this Cliveden auction, one can tell almost the entire history of Aston Martin here, from the very earliest to current cars, with some absolute classics lined up. So we're going to start with one of the oldest cars here, the 1930 Aston Martin, the 1.5 litre. This is very much representative of the sporting cars of its era and of Aston Martin at that time. And they were having tremendous success in sports car racing, hill climbs, and so on. They were very powerful, very agile, very capable in all aspects. Now, if I move back very slightly, we've then got a different era of Aston Martin. This is the 1953 DB2 Coupe, absolutely elegant, early 50s sporting cars, a classic Aston Martin of that period. This DB2, David Brown, this is the tractor manufacturer having then acquired the Aston Martin company. All of the subsequent Aston Martins bear his initials. That nomenclature has been kept all the way through. So that's a 53 DB2 Coupe. Just across from that is the drop head, same year, very different styling. Beautiful looking car, absolutely wonderfully preserved. But if I move slightly further back, we come to a Tube 4 Mark III, 58. So 5 years have elapsed and the design has moved on considerably. Incredibly collectible cars still. And then things get, well, I think I have to say, a little weirder. We're still with the DB numbers. We haven't got into James Bond territory yet. That's the 5s and the 6s. But this is a 4 GT. Wonderful looking motor car. This is a Series 4, so it's a quite late DB4. 250,000. Lovely on the bonnet, the super leggera, super lightweight. That's that body style, or that body technique, body building technique that they were using very much then. And then we move over to, well, something that I've never seen before. This is a 57 DB4. This is a prototype. It has its own numbering system. It's a DP114/2. Now, this is extremely rare, i.e. there's one of them. 395 to 425,000. And it's not a bit like the DB4 became. It's very, very different. It looks very different at the front. Completely different grille. It's much more angular. And it's very much a late 50s car prototype. It's still very obviously Aston Martin. All of the things that one would expect to see there, the logo, the steering wheel, the internal trim, the colour, all of those things are in place. But then, behind me, we come to something of a very, very different hue, literally. Of course, this is a rather threatening black, very imposing. This is the 2017 Vanquish Zagato. So not just the ordinary Vanquish. We've done stuff about the Vanquish in the past. We've been in them. But this is the Zagato version. It is, well, by any standards, more adventurous. It's rather more threatening. It's, you know, there's an old-fashioned word, leery. It's certainly that. And this is expected to fetch, well, up towards £300,000. It's aimed at a very, very different marketplace than the more, slightly more conventional DB4s. But we saw earlier a 7. It's not for sale. It was one that was in the car park. And that, for me, is just about the epitome of the DBs. But we're now up to 9s, 10s, 11s, and so on. Slightly more conventional than this one, but you know, it will have its fans. For me, the looks are not quite right, and the 4 GT, which is alongside it, is the one to have, albeit that the 4 GT Zagato, of which there are only a few on the planet, they really only built a few, the Zagato is the one to have. But then one needs to throw several millions to acquire that. Well, at the auction, I'm talking to an old friend, well, of myself and of the programme generally, Malcolm Barber, who's the senior consultant now for RM Sotheby's. You've been at this a very, very long time, Malcolm.
Good morning, Graham.
Good morning. What still excites you about these cars?
I think it's the fact that people have maintained them, kept them, cherished them, kept them in great condition, and they're still here driving after all these years. I mean, you have a fair selection here from veteran vintage to modern day supercars, and each one has been looked after and really shows the test of time.
Yeah, I know you're an active participant as well, because are you still doing the London-Brighton veteran run?
I still do, yes. I've just come back from a tour, well, 2 tours actually in the north of England. One was a veteran car tour for Brighton-eligible cars, there were 80 of us, and also for a more modern GT car tour as well, which was in the same area. But yes, I think if you own a car like this, you've got to use it.
Exercise.
Exactly.
I mean, we're used to seeing these cars in museums, but I know you're of the school that prefers to see them maintained, cleaned, and then used.
I am indeed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the generations are changing. I mean, if you look at the first part of the sale here at RM Sotheby's at Cliveden today, the first sort of 19 cars come from a collector who, when I was first selling at auction in the 1980s and 90s, was collecting. He has sadly passed away. The family are now, obviously the younger element in the family, the grandchildren, are looking at a different era of motoring that they can relate to. So these cars, which are all of veteran and vintage period, are being offered for sale. Now, they might go to museums, they might go to collectors, but the focus is definitely changing.
Sometimes the phrase in the car world, replica or recreation, is used in a fairly derogatory manner. But not this time around, because this really is something special. This is the Leyland Thomas No. 1. This is a 1922 recreation car that was raced all over the place. If you want to ante up for one of these, this particular one is 220 to 280,000. But this is a very, very faithful recreation. I have to say I love the steering wheel, wrapped as it has been, string, lacquer, etc., etc. The period leather. Clearly this is a well-used example because it's got a number of scrutineer stickers, including for the Festival of Speed, which I thought I had seen it at some years ago. You need to be very brave to drive one of these. How anybody in their right mind could drive a car which was as agricultural in appearance as this is. No front brakes at all. The most basic of cart springs for its rear suspension, certainly. Some degree of adjustability, but that was an innovation at that time. A straight-through exhaust system, which was perilously close to the driver's left elbow, but fortunately he was sitting on the right-hand side of the car. It's essentially a single-seater with enough space for somebody else to squeeze into. And these hugely finned drum brakes at the rear. But to drive one of these fast, you had to be very, very brave. And it's amazing how many of these are being driven by guys that had cut their teeth, so to speak, tested their bravery in World War I with those newfangled flying machines. We've been talking about low-volume production British cars. The car in front of us now is certainly not low volume. This is a 1969 Austin Mini 1000. This is a Mark II. You can tell that by the windows and various other bits and pieces that were considerably upgraded from the Mark I, which was nearly 10 years earlier. But this is offered without reserve. It's from the British Icons collection, which it is, of course, £10,000 to £15,000. And it is quite remarkable. I've been talking to one or two people here. I mean, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. And my memory of them in period is extremely uncomfortable compared to a modern car, but they were what they were. Alekis Agonis came up with the concept of the transverse engine and the drive shafts that powered then the front wheels. It's a fairly small bit, but you could squeeze 4 people and a bit of luggage into a very tiny packaged city car. And of course they became so fashionable with the Hooper versions and later luxury versions driven by rock stars, pop stars, film stars, in fact stars of everything, who would buy into the Mini legend. I think if you go down the market a little bit, more affordable classics, people tend to buy the cars of their youth that they couldn't afford. But this end of the market is not like that, is it?
No, it's not. No, and you're absolutely right. People who were students in the 60s and 70s can afford something for a hobby these days. They will go to what they can relate to. So, of course, that's what I say, what they want to focus on is changing. Now, there are 1 or 2 museums out there who are actively still buying and using their cars as well. So they participate.
That's very good news. So, what of the market generally? I mean, how representative of the market is this in terms of the spread of values?
Well, it's exactly that. There is a really good spread of values here, from a very early Mini at £10,000 to Ferraris, the 365 up there, the Silver Ghosts. There's a very good spread for all pockets.
So something for everyone then?
Oh, I like to say that. As an auctioneer, you would, wouldn't you?